Welcome back. F1 the movie is done by Apple Films, directed by Joseph Kosinski, and it is starring Brad Pitt, Damson Idris, and Javier Bardem. This movie is following the true events of real-life driver Sonny Hayes, who was a up-and-coming Formula One star in the 90s. And he has a very bad accident in his youth that kind of derails his hopes and his pro career. So about 30 years later, he is found by his old driving partner and colleague, Javier Bardem, who plays Ruben in this film. And he asks him to come race for his team, which in this movie is called Apex. And they are trying to revive the team. They're trying to get a shot. The team is not doing well. They're at the risk of being sold. And he wants him to come race for him in the hopes of revitalizing the team, getting their first win, and a chance for Brad Pitt's Sonny to relive his dreams and get a shot again at what he never got to do in his youth. There's going to be no spoilers here. I'm really just going to touch on the movie, my experience with it, and what I thought about it. I was very, very impressed with this movie. I was really looking forward to seeing this since the initial trailers dropped a while back. I really think myself, like most people, were pretty hyped for this movie. You know, Brad Pitt's doing it. It was set to have a really big total budget of, I believe, about $350 million in production and marketing costs, and Apple was doing this. So this is going to be a really, really big movie. They wanted to make the racing realistic. It was done on real Grand Prix tracks. It was done alongside and during some real races. And you feel that. You see that in this movie. You're right there in the cockpit of these cars. You feel the action. You feel the turns. You feel the speed. And it did not disappoint at all. In this movie, you're following the few main characters, which I like that it wasn't a ton of people to follow. It really is focused on Brad Pitt and his partner, Damson Idris, who plays Joshua Pierce, or JP. And he's kind of the younger, cocky teammate slash rival on this team. And the movie is really centered around the dynamic and the relationship between these two characters. And both of them did a great job. It's very much kind of a cat and mouse, the old experienced pro and then the younger cocky guy. But there's a lot of interesting turns, and I really liked what they did with that. There were a couple things that I didn't see coming, and I think this movie was actually pretty hard to predict in a couple key scenes, which I liked a lot. Javier Bardem plays Ruben, who's kind of one of the partial owners, CEO, manager of the team that's failing, and they've never had a win, so it's the start of the season, and they're trying to really do a Hail Mary and essentially have these two drivers, the older pro and the younger rookie, revitalize this team and hopefully work towards getting their first championship cup and their first World Cup. I was really glad this movie took its time, but man, did it feel like it went by fast. The movie was actually pretty long. I think it was at least 2.5 hours, but it did not feel like it. I didn't want this movie to end. I like that there were a lot of races. They weren't all super long, but it was nice. You got to see different races. There's different situations and little things and tactics that happen in all of them that are pretty cool. It's not just your standard, just nonstop speed, no story. There's some interesting stuff that happens that I really liked. You get to learn a lot more about the sport. You get to see some kind of technical racing things, some different situations that happen on the track. And if you're ever anyone that's even been remotely into cars, driving, F1, you're going to like this movie. It's extremely entertaining. The way that it's filmed, it was very, very well done. You really get a sense of the drivers and honestly how dangerous this is. A lot of these cars are around 1,000 brake horsepower. They can go from 0 to 60 in about 2.5 seconds, and they're generally going around 200 to 230 miles per hour at their peak. So it's extremely dangerous when you really realize how fast these guys are going in cars that are extremely light. There's virtually no protection. You're completely exposed. And one little crash or wrong turn could mean death. An observation I had after seeing this, which I don't know if it was intentional or planned, but I really kind of realized the movie in its pacing and the way it felt as a viewer was really like a race in and of itself. You have the whole, movie motion picture that's the whole stretch of the race, or the, 75 to 100 laps that these guys tend to do. But there's little pit stops, just like the drivers do. There's little pit stops, which are intermissions of the scenes where the action slows down, because it's so edge of your seat speed and action. You kind of want just a little while to let your heart rate settle down. And there's scenes that are more verbally driven and they're more exposition heavy, that are what you see in between the action. And it's really where the characters and their performances come out. And I really like that. So the whole movie is really like this whole race, and then you have little pit stops, and then you're ready for more, and it's perfectly well paced. So I don't know if that was intentionally planned, but I thought that was actually a really big strength to this movie, and it just made watching it very, very enjoyable. I would strongly recommend definitely go see this in the biggest, craziest theater that you can. This is one you want to see in theaters at least once. Whether you're seeing it in XD, the 4D sound, the D-box seats that move with the experience, IMAX, whatever it is, go see it in the best theater possible. Get the maximum viewing and sound experience. This is one to do it, and it was really, really good. I saw it in just kind of a regular XD premium sound theater, but it was a big screen. It was stadium seating. So I would definitely recommend doing that. This is really something that's fun to go see in theaters. Certainly not going to disappoint you watching at home, but I would say go out to the theater and see this one because it's going to be a different experience, and overall it's going to be better. I'm really going to put this up with top 3, top 5 best driving racing movies ever. I really thought it was that good. You know, they're all different levels of character and quality, but as far as the most iconic and, cult-like racing films, you have things like Ford versus Ferrari, which I loved, big fan of that movie. You have the original Fast and the Furious, which obviously over time has become one of the most beloved street racing movies ever. Obviously very different budget, very different type of writing, but still extremely iconic movie, and what that franchise has become, that was the starting point. And then other things, Gone in 60 Seconds, there's a lot of other things, the Mad Max movies, the original Death Races, stuff like that. I'm really going to put this in the top 5. I really, really was impressed with this movie. It was an absolute treat to watch. Thought everybody did a great job. The writing was solid, and the ending was just absolutely perfect. So start to finish, I thought this movie was very, very well done. We'll probably go see it at least one more time in theaters myself. So that's going to do it for this review. Have you seen this movie? What did you think about it? Stay tuned for more. Thanks. Be careful leaving the movie theater, because those people, when you're coming out of a movie like this, when you're coming out of the Fast and Furious movie or a movie about speed, you're going to want to be a little bit heavier on the pedal. So just be careful after you leave this movie.